second bedroom. The house had never sounded empty until Thomas Hale began living in it alone. During the day, it behaved like any other old place. Floors creaking under weight, pipes ticking as they cooled, wind slipping through hairline cracks in the windows. But at night, when Thomas sat downstairs with only a lamp and a book for company, the sounds seemed deliberate, measured, as if the house were waiting for him to notice. He noticed the footsteps on the fourth night. They came from upstairs, soft and unhurried, pacing back and forth above the living room ceiling. Thomas froze, listening, every muscle tightening. The steps were too slow to be settling wood, too even to be animals. Someone was walking. He held his breath. The footsteps stopped. Thomas waited a full minute before standing. He told himself it was nothing. An echo, the house adjusting, his nerves stretched thin by solitude. He'd inherited the place only 3 weeks earlier, after his aunt's sudden death, and grief did strange things to perception. Still, he locked the bedroom door before sleeping. The next night, the footsteps returned. This time they were closer, crossing the upstairs hallway, pausing, turning back. Thomas stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up into darkness. The upstairs had 2 bedrooms. One was his old childhood room, now stripped bare and locked by habit. The other, the second bedroom, had been sealed for as long as he could remember. His aunt had never allowed anyone inside. "Storage," she'd said once, too quickly. "Nothing important." The door at the top of the stairs remained closed now, its surface pale in the dim glow of the hallway night light. Thomas waited for it to open. Didn't. On the third night, the footsteps were accompanied by something else. A drawer sliding open. Thomas jerked upright on the couch, heart racing. The sound came clearly from above, wood against wood, followed by the soft thud of something being set down. Someone was moving furniture. He took the stairs slowly, one step at a time, the old wood groaning beneath his weight. Halfway up, the noise stopped again, as if whoever or whatever was upstairs had heard him. "Hello," Thomas called. His voice sounded wrong in the house, smaller than it should have been. No answer. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched ahead of him. His bedroom door stood closed on the left. At the end of the hall, the second bedroom waited. The door was still sealed. A strip of yellow tape crossed the frame, brittle with age. The knob was dusty, untouched. Thomas stared at it, confusion creeping in. If no one could open that door, then, behind him, the floor creaked. Thomas spun around. The hallway was empty. He backed away, returned downstairs, and spent the rest of the night with every light on. The evidence began appearing subtly after that. A mug in the sink he hadn't used. A chair pulled out slightly from the dining table. The television volume turned down, not off when he was certain he'd shut it. He checked the locks obsessively. Windows, doors, the attic hatch. Everything was secure. On the 7th night, he woke to the sound of breathing. Came from upstairs. Slow, steady, close. Thomas lay rigid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rise and fall of lungs that were not his own. When the breathing stopped, he counted to 100 before moving. In the morning, he found footprints in the dust along the upstairs hallway. Bare feet. They stopped at the door to the second bedroom. That was when Thomas decided to open it. The tape peeled away with a dry, tearing sound. Dust puffed into the air as he turned the knob. The lock gave easily, as if it had never been secured at all. The door swung inward. The room was not empty. It was lived in. A neatly made bed sat against the far wall, sheets worn soft with use. A small lamp glowed faintly on the nightstand, plugged into a socket Thomas didn't remember installing. Books lined a shelf, dog-eared, familiar titles. Clothes hung in the closet. Shoes rested by the door. The air smelled warm, human. Thomas stepped inside, his heart pounding. On the desk lay a photograph. It showed 2 boys standing in front of the house. One of them was Thomas, younger, smiling uncertainly at the camera. The other boy stood beside him, arms slung casually over his shoulder. Thomas didn't remember him. Footsteps sounded behind him. Thomas turned slowly. A man stood in the doorway. He was about Thomas's age, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore a familiar expression, one Thomas recognized from his own reflection on sleepless nights. Confusion mixed with concern. "Did you finally decide to come in?" the man asked. Thomas's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" The man frowned. "What do you mean?" "You've been in my house," Thomas said, forcing the words out. "Upstairs. At night." The man's expression shifted, not to guilt or fear, but to something like hurt. "Our house," he corrected gently. "Thomas, what's going on?" Thomas took a step back. "How do you know my name?" The man sighed. "Because we've lived together for years." Silence stretched between them. "That's not possible," Thomas said. "I live alone." The man glanced around the room. "Then why is my room here?" Thomas shook his head, struggling to stay grounded. "I inherited this house from my aunt. There was no one else." The man's eyes flicked to the photograph on the desk. "Your aunt?" he repeated. "You mean Margaret?" Thomas stiffened. "You knew her?" "She raised us," the man said. "Both of us." A pressure built behind Thomas's eyes. "I don't have a brother." The man stared at him. "I know." The words landed heavily. "I'm not your brother," the man continued. "Not exactly. I'm the one who stayed." Thomas laughed weakly. "That doesn't make sense." "Does any of this?" the man asked softly. He gestured to the room, the bed, the books. "You hear me walking because I walk. You see signs because I live here. You just stopped seeing me." Thomas's pulse roared in his ears. "You're lying." The man stepped aside, allowing Thomas a clear view of the desk. "Check the journals." Thomas hesitated, then picked one up. The handwriting inside was neat, familiar. Thomas forgot again today. "Margaret says it's better this way. Says the house helps him stay whole. As long as one of us remembers, it still counts." Thomas flipped pages, hands shaking. "He wakes up alone now. Thinks I'm a noise, a stranger. If he opens the door, it means it's getting worse." "What is this?" Thomas whispered. The man leaned against the wall. "The house was your aunt's solution. When you were younger, after the accident, you started splitting, losing time, losing parts of yourself." "No," Thomas said. "That's not true." "You don't remember the hospital," the man said, "or the tests, or how scared you were of being alone." Thomas felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt. "She sealed the room when you got older," the man continued. "Said it would help you move on, live normally. I stayed anyway." "You're saying you're me," Thomas said. The man nodded. "The part that wakes up at night, the part that remembers." A sound rose from the walls, a low creak, like the house settling into itself. Thomas backed away. "This isn't real." The man smiled sadly. "You always say that. What happens now?" Thomas asked. "That depends," the man said. "Do you close the door again?" The house creaked louder, impatient. Thomas looked at the bed. The photograph, the life tucked neatly away upstairs. If he closed the door, he could forget, go back to quiet nights and empty rooms. If he didn't, the footsteps would never stop. Thomas stepped back into the hallway. The man watched him carefully. Slowly, Thomas pulled the door closed. The click of the latch echoed through the house. The footsteps stopped. Downstairs, Thomas sat alone in the living room as the evening light faded. The house was quiet again. Peaceful. Too peaceful. When he went to bed that night, he didn't lock the door. At 2:13 a.m., footsteps crossed the hallway. This time, Thomas didn't wake. And upstairs, in the second bedroom, the man listened, wondering how many nights it would take before Thomas remembered him again.